The following podcast is brought to you by Iconic Nation Media. Welcome to Season 5 of Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Levy. I'm here to guide you on a journey of personal growth and fulfillment. Join me as we delve into the challenges of both business and personal life, aiming to discover our true selves and connect more deeply with the world around us. On this podcast, we'll explore the topics that inspire and empower us to become the best version of ourselves. From book reviews to interviews with iconic individuals, we'll have insightful conversations that resonate with your journey. And a big thank you to our sponsors, the Boys and Girls Club of America, Greater Conejo Valley, and Levy's Deli for supporting the show and helping us bring these valuable discussions to you. Please share, rate, and review the podcast. And thank you so much for listening. You can also leave your comments at Kimberly Levy on social media. Thank you for your feedback and thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is your host, Kimberly Levy. I am so happy to be back with you guys. We are reunited and it feels so good. Yes, we are reunited and it feels so good. Okay, I owe you an apology because I have not been able to release my normal weekly Wednesday schedule for you guys because why? The fires. Yes. Now, would you believe these fires had me back and forth panic packing, panic cooking, panic eating, panic everything-ing. Okay? These fires were really obviously unexpected. And I actually have an episode that I'm going to be publishing this week with somebody that is going to give us some ways that we can help with the fire victims. So I don't want to touch too much on that subject matter right here, right now. That has really consumed a lot of my time and energy, especially in the first, 3 weeks of January. And I have my deepest condolences and sympathies with all the victims. Our family has been working very hard to help every which way we know how. And it just doesn't seem like enough. So I can't miss and continue the podcast without acknowledging the deep losses that have occurred. And, we have personal friends. So many of us do here in SoCal. And for those of you that were checking in on me and your loved ones throughout Southern California, thank you. And I hope everybody is, just keeping it together. So I'm going to give you a little pivot and we're just going to do a fun little chit chat today because I actually have my baby sleeping and then my son and Charlotte are at ice hockey and my head has been spinning. So we're going to do a little bonus episode, a little catch up, you and I, because we haven't had a chance to, sit down and have our tea together. And if you're new, welcome, by the way. Welcome so much. Also, I do want to point you guys to a new podcast I launched in end of December. And it's called the Podcast Launcher, and it's all things podcasting. So if you want that kind of content, go over there. They're quick little bites of podcasts, like the how-tos and the nuts and bolts and answering your questions around podcasting. I get so many questions every day from friends, from family, listeners, clients, etc. And I just wanted a place where I could really just talk about podcasting. And I wasn't sure if this audience wanted to hear about that. And then I didn't want to turn you off. If you're like, I don't want to hear about that. Okay, cool. That's fine too. This is just really about you and I catching up today. And look for another episode coming up where we go really deep into things going on with the fires and really how we can all help, because that's truly what matters in all of this. But I'm going to let you know. Okay, so let's rewind. Let's go back. So I'm going to rewind real quick and just catch you back up. So in end of December or early January, we had gone on our family trip. So our kids had been out of school, you guys, for almost 5 weeks. And here's why. We took our kids out a week early from school back in December because we like to go on our winter trip before it's one, too expensive, as I mentioned in my last episode, and two, way too busy and crowded, and you can't get any dining reservations and just everything's chaotic and all the things. So typically every year we will take out our kids a week early. Well, that was a failing strategy this time around because we didn't realize that they would have not only the first week that we pulled them out in Park City and the regular 2-week winter break, they went back for 2 days in January after 3 weeks of being out of school. They went back on Monday and Tuesday in whatever the dates were, like the first week of January with it. Everyone's kids went back. Okay, let's just fact check ourselves. Yeah. Okay, January 6th and 7th. Okay. So they go back to school the 6th and the 7th. And then our school was under evacuation. They did not go back to school, you guys, until Tuesday, January 21st. I kid you not. Tuesday, January 21st. January 21st. Our kids were out of school for 5 weeks. It was giving COVID vibes. Moms were texting each other nasty stuff about, we should be back in school. No, we shouldn't. You're being insensitive. Back and forth. Everyone had their valid perspective for sure. It was just one of those things where there was so much anxiety. People, like, I just can't even describe what that was like. It was not a fun experience. I'll tell you that much. We got evacuated. We went to my mother-in-law's in the city, terrible air quality. And I have to say, not that I meant to talk all about the fires because I'm not going to, but I'm just letting you know, like as part of the recap, what happened was we ended up losing power. And so we went to my mother-in-law's house in the city where the air quality was terrible. And I want to tell you something. I really didn't realize the magnitude and depth of depth and breadth of destruction that had been happening at that time. All we knew is that there was a massive fire. That's all we knew. And I had no power. And I have 3 kids and I can't feed them. Brian's restaurants had to be shut down. He was bringing in trucks to ship out food because the food goes bad, as you can imagine. So many small business owners were hurt in all of this. I want to tell you, my friend, she has a special reading business. All her clients were impacted. And, she still has payroll. So even if you don't have your clients, because her clients were coming from Palisades, a lot of them, she still has all her employees. So this was a very devastating situation, really all around for every single one of us. Obviously, I don't want to make this about, oh my God, it was so awful for me. That's not what I'm not trying to be like a grief groupie and claim that, it was worse for us in any way. Thankfully, it was just really stress inducing and inconvenient at best. But I also have to say, someone said to me, well, your experience was your experience. You're allowed, like, you're the most important person in your world. So if you're allowed to have those experiences. So anyway, man, we went on an adventure. When we were evacuated, do you know my mother-in-law and sister-in-law don't make coffee in the morning? Girl, are you kidding me? I wake up, okay. Now listen here, if you don't have this coffee machine I have, and I don't remember the brand. It's like one of the basic ones. But anyway, every single night, Brian or I prep the coffee. We have our very specific way of doing it. We have it timed. It starts going off and coffee is starting to be made by 4:30 in the morning, every single morning, 7 days a week. So every single morning, no matter what time I wake up, 4:30 a.m., 5:15, my coffee's hot, just sitting there waiting for me, shining. So we're under evacuation at this point, and I'll tell you the thing that happened with my dad too. I'll tell you guys that in a second. But I'm at my sister-in-law's house at this point because I had to evacuate my dad. I'm going to tell you in a sec. But I'm like, your girl needs coffee. Jeez. So I go on my Starbucks app and I order it. And I'm like, great. It's like saying it's like 0.1 miles away. Genius. She's in Century City. Great. Beautiful, gorgeous place that she lives. Okay, great. Everything's going swimmingly. And then somehow it loops me all the way around. I'm on like Santa Monica Boulevard. It's like 5 a.m. at this point. No, I lied. It's 5:45. So to me, that's not even super early, right? So I am going on this like there's a Century City Mall, 5:45. I see Santa Monica Boulevard I'm going all around. I'm like, this is weird. So it looped me in this bizarre way. I should have just made a left turn and I would have been there. Anyway, I pull up. It's like the Century Plaza something building or something. And I'm like, wait, what? Where's the Starbucks? By the way, 5:45 in the morning, your girl's in her pajamas and slippers. Yes, ma'am. Now, my slippers are cute. I mean, they're ugly cute. They're Uggs. You know how Uggs are fugly, So anyway, I get to this beautiful building, and it reminds me of when I worked at my management consulting job, where it's like these big corporate buildings, and you have to have 17 badges and clearance to get in, and there's security everywhere and all that stuff. That's what it was giving. It was giving that. It was giving like corporate entity vibes. And I'm like sitting here literally in my pajamas, and I'm like knocking on the door because I was like, I need coffee. I'm desperate. I see no Starbucks anywhere nearby. I'm not near any like retail. Like, this is just not it. Make it make sense. So I'm like knocking on the window, and the security guard comes out. She's like, "Oh, hi, ma'am. Can I help you?" She just like unlock the door. I'm like, hi, yes. Is there a Starbucks around here? Because I ordered a coffee and I paid for it, and it's saying it's here." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, downstairs." I'm like, "What?" So I go down the escalator, still in my pajamas and slippers. And it's like, all of a sudden, it's like I'm shopping at a mall. I'm like, this is so weird. We're not at the Beverly Center. We had already stopped there too. That's a whole different adventure I had with the kids. This is a rogue building in Century City. I'm walking through Century City. I'm walking through retail stuff, and I'm trying to find Starbucks in my pajamas and my ugly slippers. I keep walking, and by the grace of God, randomly, there is Starbucks. So I walk in, and a beautiful beam of shining light had my glorious coffee. It was so funny. So I started documenting it on the way back because I'm like, this is actually ridiculous. Like, this is nuts. This is so silly. So it was just little, conveniences like that had happened. Okay. And then I have to tell you what happened when I had to evacuate my dad. Oh, God. Okay. So then the Kenneth fire had broken out, which was the one near Hidden Hills. And we don't live in Hidden Hills, but we live not that far. And anyway, so I am watching on my Watch Duty app, and I'm realizing, oh, there's a fire, and it says where my parents live, they're being evacuated. Like, they need to go. They're under mandatory evacuation. And I only live about 1.5 miles, but we're technically in a different district or whatever. So anyway, I'm like, I guarantee, I call my dad, he doesn't answer. Okay. So then I'm like, all right, I need to call his neighbors. So I call our neighbors. Now they're LAPD. They go in my parents' house, walk through the house, call me back. We walk through the house. Your dad is not here. His car is gone. So all in unison, we say he's at the library. So my dad always goes to Barnes and Noble to read, and he calls it the library. It's hilarious. Anyway, it's like he just like loves going there. He's very predictable. So sure enough, I'm calling him, and I literally say to the girls, I'm like, my dad, I guarantee, is at Barnes and Noble, and his phone is in his car. So, and also, in case you missed this, or you're a new listener, you have to also understand there's also, okay, another part of the stress that is kind of, I have to just like interject for a quick second before I continue the story. There's another layer of stress involved in all of the evacuation story that that you probably don't really realize, which is my mom's gone. She's not here. I lost my mom in October, and the last time we had evacuated, she was with me. She evacuated her, my parents, they were married. They evacuated with me to my mother-in-law's house. So the entire time this is all happening, every step of this, I was really upset because I just wanted to call my mom. And yeah, so it just like added a whole other level of stress, I think, because, I think just not having her by my side to laugh, because her and I would like laugh through, like we had the funniest evacuation story. I actually told it at her funeral because it was so good. So like my mom would always, when you have your like best friend and you guys can kind of like laugh through everything, and like no matter how stressful or how much of a shit show something is, you can like laugh your way through it. That was my mom. And so like not having her this time through it was really hard. Okay, sorry. And I was sharing that also because this is also part of this also was in the underpinning of the story about getting my dad out was, I have to watch out for him. And so it was very stressful, And anybody out there with an older parent that's like widowed or just is older, they need us to help take care of them. And so anyway, back to the funny parts of it. But like the reality is it was actually really hard and really sad, um, because it was just more of a burden and stress. Not like a burden like, oh, poor me, I can't do this. Like I want to help my dad obviously as much as possible because I'm so close to him too. But it was just a different. Normally your parents are like together and they can like figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Like normally my mom would be there and be like, Rick, we have to pack. And then like they would pack and then they'd call me and then they'd be like, okay, we're on our way. And like, you know what I mean? It's just everything's all messed up without my mom. And that's just the cold hard truth of it. And it sucks. So anyway, back to the levity and all of it. So I'm like, okay, I guarantee my dad is at Barnes & Noble. So I call Barnes & Noble and the manager gets on. I'm like, hi, I'm Kimberly Levy. I'm looking for my dad. He needs to evacuate and he doesn't know. I guarantee he doesn't know. And she said, okay, may I please have his, description? I'm like, he's 6'2", he's almost 80 years old. He's tall, he's thin. He's probably sitting down reading on a chair. And she goes, okay, not a problem. Just so you know, I have about 100 people sheltering here. So it might take me a little bit to find him, but I will call you back either way. And by the way, she couldn't have been better. And hats off. I think her name was Victoria. But anyway, so we hang up and I start laughing. This is where I'm like laughing. I'm like, I guarantee I know exactly what is going on. In my mind, I'm watching it like it's a movie, and I know for a fact this is what's happening. I'm like, here's my dad. He's sitting there doing his normal thing where he's just casually reading, and he's looking around Barnes & Noble going, oh my, what a busy day here at Barnes & Noble. Has no idea people are like, evacuated. He has he's just chilling. I guarantee it. And then I remembered, and this is a good tip if you do have an aging parent. I remember the week my mom passed, I got my dad's phone and I put on the Find My Phone app, not because I would want to infringe on his privacy or like micromanage anything or whatever, but just for safety. And I completely forgot because I don't like check it. I was like, okay, in case of an emergency, it's good for me to be able to track my dad's phone, or even if he just loses it, you know what I mean? So I went on. So as I'm waiting to hear the call back from Barnes & Noble, I go and I find his phone. Sure enough, his phone's sitting in his car while he's inside, I guarantee, Barnes & Noble. So within minutes, he calls me. He goes, hey, he's like, Kim, because he calls me Kim, even though I hate being called Kim, by the way. He goes, yeah, it's the funniest thing. This woman comes up to me. She finds me and she says that you were looking for me. I'm like, Dad, everybody needs to evacuate. You need to go home right now, pack up your stuff, and make it over to Bobby's house. Bobby is Brian's mom. Her name is Eva. We call her Bobby. So anyway, he's like, what? I'm like, yes, Dad, you're under evacuation. There's a new fire. You have to evacuate. He's like, oh, okay. Well, what should I bring? And I'm like, bring your hearing aid charger, a pair of clothes, and bring Mom because we have her ashes. And to me, I'm laughing, thinking this is funny. But meanwhile, I'm texting my sister, don't worry, I told Dad to bring Mom. And we're laughing, but it's sad. This entire thing is sad, but it's funny and sad all in the exact same breath. And I'm just being completely honest with what it was. Okay. So I'm just letting you know. I'm laughing because I'll tell you why in a second. You guys will hear. Okay. So my dad starts to drive and they start almost shutting down the main freeway, the 101 freeway. It should be a 45-minute ride. And they're talking about we're going to start shutting down the freeway. So then the back way is going to take him 2.5 hours, the 118 to the 405, because my mother-in-law's in Beverly Hills. Okay. So you have to exit the 405. So he's like, well, which way should I go? I'm like, part of me is just, go for it and go through the 101 and get here. But then I'm like, we can't take the chance because if it jumps the freeway and he's stuck on the freeway in traffic and something happens, I could never forgive myself. And I can't take that chance. I just can't. So he was going to evacuate to Oxnard. And I'm like, you're not going to some random city where you don't know anybody. No. So he was all pissed at me, right? He was so mad. But he listened and he came and he goes, and it's 2.5 hours, this poor guy. And he's calling me and he's hungry and he's pissed. This is ridiculous. And anyway, and my dad doesn't get mad. You have to understand, he's like it's very difficult to make him upset. Very difficult. I think I've seen him yell maybe once in my whole life, if even that. Like his version of yelling isn't even yelling. So anyway, he's a very calm person, but he was pissed. And then, so he's driving and he's telling me where he is and he's so upset. There's so much traffic and we're like having an apocalypse moment. Anyway, I go get some kosher pizza and it's the best place. It's Nagila Pizza, and Brian and I used to have it all the time because we're not kosher or anything, but this pizza is just the most exceptional pizza you've ever had in your life. So I'm like, okay, when my dad gets here, we're going to feed him some good pizza and he'll chill out. So he arrives and he goes, I have your mother in the trunk. Oh, you guys, I have to laugh like where I can. This is so fucked up. Okay, I'm sorry. I just have to tell you what it was. Okay, I can't make this up. You guys, what else are we supposed to say? You know what I'm saying? So he comes in and he's so pissed off. He's been in the car for 2.5 hours. He's starving. He can hardly see at night, poor guy. And like probably should not have been even driving at night, but it is what it is. He comes, my father-in-law gives him a shot of whiskey. They have pizza. He's unwinding. All of a sudden, I look down. I get a notification. Evacuation has been lifted. I'm like, Jen, my sister texts me. She's like, they lifted the evacuation on Dad's area. I'm like, I know. Don't say shit. He just got here. It took him 3 hours almost. He's going to be so pissed. And so I don't say anything. I take him upstairs to his room, like to get him, like to show him where to sleep and everything. And, you know, we're getting him settled in and unpacking and whatever. He's like, oh, I'm going to leave at like 5:45 in the morning. I want to go back, you know, to my office. And then I have a wedding. I have to go to an Oxnard or in Camarillo or wherever it was, something. I'm like, oh God. So anyway, he looks at his iPad. He goes, Kim, the evacuation orders have been lifted. He's like, one of our friends emailed us. And I'm like, I'm not going to say her name. I'm just going to say it's Sally. It's not Sally. I'm like, Sally, shut the fuck up, Sally. Why'd you have to tell everybody? Like, anyway. So it was just like, this is what I mean, you guys. Like, this was not even like half of the thing. But needless to say, this was another funny thought that I had to share. I've been like dying to tell you. I feel like it's been so long since we caught up. Okay, the other part that I had to tell you that I've been dying to tell you is, you know how Robin, what's her name? Robin, the actress, not the actress, the comedian. Hold on. I always forget her. Scala, I think is her. Robin. Okay, do you guys remember the video where it was her all-time funniest, how do you spell Robin Shaw, whatever. Anyway, she, you know, Robin Shaw comic, ROBYN space SCHALL. So her video of when we were in COVID, it was like she posted this video somewhere in the middle of COVID. And I have cried probably about 100 times watching the video because it is so hilarious. But she goes over her 2020 goals. And she's talking about like she wanted to lose weight and she wanted to go out more, and she's like cracking up and she's like eating ice cream in her bathtub and she's like reading her COVID goals, and she talks about, and she wanted to see her grandma more, and she's like, my grandma's dead. She died. And she was like in tears crying. I'm telling you, it was the most hysterical. I think it's probably the most hilarious video I've ever watched, ever, like in terms of that genre. So anyway, I was dying laughing because I'm like, finally, like maybe last week, I was like, okay, well, we're 3 weeks into January and I'm just now starting my 2025. because literally the entire first 3 weeks of January was an absolute shit show. And since then, when I had gotten home, we also almost got evacuated again. We've had horrible plane crashes. I mean, just horrible, just wild, horrible, horrible stuff happening. But all that to say, the good news, such good news. As soon as I was able to start to catch back up and because I had to cancel all of my work stuff, you guys, my kids are home. We're not even, everything's life stopped again for us, okay? And so everything stopped. So we had to cancel our filming. I had to cancel all of my shows, all of my work, all of my meetings with brands, all kinds of stuff. Just everything stopped. And it sucked because, you have that energy going into the new year, and it just got just completely like a rug out from underneath us. So anyway, I'm so grateful that, I hope this doesn't come off like as something that's tone deaf or insensitive or anything. I'm just letting you know where I've been. This is a very long way of telling you what's been going on. So, all that to say, that's how everything started in 2025. Not the shiniest of the years so far, but I will say, now that my kids are back in school, I've gotten back into a week and a half worth of work, and I'm so happy about it. And things are just going, things are cruising, things are doing good. And I'm so grateful for that. So I'm grateful for you listening. I hope this was somewhat entertaining. I'm sorry if it's like a little bit, chaotic right now, but that's just where we've been. I don't know what else to say except for the raw truth. That's how it goes. So rate us 5 stars on on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. No, my baby's up, so I have to run, you guys. This was super fun. I will be publishing a couple different interviews. I will also be publishing the interview that I was on for one of my clients, and so I'll actually put that interview on my show as well if you didn't hear it on the Positive Traction podcast. And you can hear a little bit about my story if you're interested. And they interviewed me, and it was really fun to be a part of that. So you can look for that. That'll be coming out in the next, couple weeks, probably. It's actually on Positive Traction podcast right now. If you want to go ahead and listen, you can watch the full thing on YouTube as well at Iconic Nation Media on our YouTube. So go check it out if you want to see me in the flesh. And we're filming and interviewing, and Coach Henry's incredible. Shout out Cassie and Kira. And they did such a phenomenal job. So proud of that team. They're just crushing it. Okay, with that, have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will chat again soon. All right, that is it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and be sure to follow us at Iconic Nation Media and send us a direct message and comment on some of our posts so that we can hear your feedback and incorporate them into our show. We appreciate you listening, and we look forward to catching you next week.